In today's video, I'm going to show you how to properly support and prepare engineering part. Normally something reserved for FDM, but also works pretty dang good in resin. Let's get going. So first, what is an engineering part? Well, an engineering part is anything where dimensions and accuracy is really important because it's either going to be functional or it's going to be a prototype. For this particular one, I made this in four different resins on 4 different printers. I did it in this way to kind of prove the point that it doesn't matter what type of resin you're using or printer you're using. And I used every printer from Anycubic, Elegoo, and Frozen just to kind of prove the point that you can make all these things work together really, really well without any issue, which is proper preparation within Lychee Slicer. So with that, let's get going. So first, I'm gonna start with the pin right here. Now this is a really important part. It kind of holds the whole thing together. So if you're gonna print something like this one, I recommend getting some engineering grade resin instead of like your fast or standard ABS, just because it needs a little extra strength. Now also because this pin needs a smooth surface as everything's gonna kind of rotate around it, kind of like, you can kind of see. Now because we need this part to be really, really smooth, what we don't want to do is we don't want to turn it at all. If we turn it, we're going to get bumps due to the stepping. Also, we would have to put supports on this thing in order to get it to print properly. And if we do that, it's going to have all these bumps on it from the supports, and it's not going to be nice and smooth. So we're going to make sure that it's upright. Just undo all that. And we're gonna one thing, also, I don't wanna print it on the build plate. If I print it on the build plate, it's gonna be hard to get off and I might break it trying to get it off. Unless you've got the little flex plates. I'm not a big fan of those. That's a whole other topic. So for me, what I do is I just come over here and I just lift it up by about 6 millimeters. Now I'm gonna go through and put some supports down. Let's turn on mirroring just because it's a circle. It's gonna be really, really easy to mirror a perfect circle. So go through, make sure I'm on heavy. I don't really care about support damage on this guy because it doesn't matter. It's on the bottom. If I want to send them off and make it look all pretty, I can. So I'm just gonna way over support it. I just want it to work. It doesn't matter at all. So then let's go over here to layout. I'm gonna make 25 of them so I have a few spare in case I break some. So for that one, I'm gonna come over to copy. We're gonna make 24, which is 1 plus the 1, or 1 plus 24 is 25. We're gonna duplicate the selection, which is gonna make my 25. I'm gonna highlight here and then I'm gonna go to arrange. And I want about 5 millimeters between them all. Rectangles, fine. We'll arrange them. And there we go, we've got a rectangle there. Now this is something kind of cool. I can either keep them all like this as separate objects with everything. And if I go over and I place a raft with them all separated like that, it will create the raft, but they're like individual rafts on every single one. And I don't really care for that so much, even if I do like a triangle raft, see that they're all kind of separate. I don't want to deal with a bunch of things when I'm removing them from the build plate, or if I have to arrange these, I don't want to make sure I grab all 25 of them. It's kind of a pain. So instead, I'm going to go back over to layout, go over to my tools, and I'm going to merge all these into one object. Now there's a single object, so if I click on them, they all move together. If I apply a raft, the raft is applied as a whole unit instead of one. So I'm pretty much done with the poles at this point. They're going to print beautifully. Let's move on to the next one. And while you like and subscribe to this video, here's a little B-roll for you. The cap is almost exactly the same, except for with the cap, what I don't want to do is I don't want to print it like this because I'll get a suction cup. So I'm actually going to turn it around like this. Now, because the cap also doesn't matter about layer lines or support damage or anything like that, it's really short, I am gonna follow the rule of tilt everything and tilt this one by that little bit. Let's lift it up, go over to my supports, and we'll just go through heavy, yep. Place supports just kind of around the perimeter. I don't want the supports to go over the edge. I want them just to be kind of close to the edge, but not over it. And then I want one more support right here where this hole is, because this is technically a ledge right here. One more support just right there, and that should be more than enough. I could probably even reduce this in height just a little bit more, save a little resin. There we go. And now I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna go to duplicate, do my 24, duplicate the selection, grab the selection. Now I'm going to arrange them. 5 millimeters worked out really well last time, we'll do it this time. That works for me. If I want to readjust this, I could, but I'm honestly, well, let's do a little bit readjustment here. There we go. Now I'm going to merge them all together and make the raft a solid raft. I like to use on things with a larger surface like this, I do like to use the line triangle raft just because it keeps the overall cross section lower on the burn-in or the bottom layers, so I get less split rafts and less issues overall. So I'm just gonna use the line triangle raft. And that's pretty much it for these ones. These ones are done and they'll print perfectly. It'll look like that when it's done, or very similar to that. The next one is of course the most important part, and that is the track. Now there are two versions of the track, one of them which has a keyhole for these little triangle tabs, and the other ones which are clean and they don't. The good news is we only have to support one of them, and then we can kind of replace the model for the other one without having to re-support it, and I'll show you that at the end. But for now, let's talk about why these pieces are a little bit complicated to print within resin and how we can overcome the complicated shape. So first, let's talk about how they were designed. They were designed in FDM to be printed like this, just kind of flat on the flat part like that. But the issue we're gonna have in resin doing this is this overhang right here gets a little bit thin, and circles like this, when they're printed flat, have a tendency to become ovals. We'll run into the issue of round peg oval. It won't work very well, so we need round peg round hole. So for that one, what we're gonna do is we wanna tilt it up on its end like that. Now this creates another issue, and that is overhangs. We've got some overhangs here that are like big flat shapes, parallel to the build plate. Big no-nos, especially when we need dimensional accuracy. And I'll show you, if we come over here and try to put supports down, you'll kind of see that these supports, we'd have to have quite a bit of them. And it would work, they'll just have to kind of overhang and stretch. This one won't be much of an issue because it can overhang all the way down to the build plate. But the one here can be a little bit difficult, being that it has to overhang this guy right here. And plus, even if I do a really good job of supporting, just having something that's perfectly flat, again, parallel to the build plate, is gonna have some sort of issues with it. So instead, I'm going to, let's delete these supports. I'm gonna add a little bit of a tilt. Also, I'm going to lift it off the build plate. Again, I don't wanna print anything on the build plate. I know some people are gonna get kind of upset with me about this particular topic, but I really am against printing anything directly on the build plate. There are tons of reasons why. The LCD is never perfectly flat. The build plate's never perfectly flat. The printer on the bottom layers, even if you use tons of light off the lay, could still have some issues with the Z height. So all of your dimensional accuracy is really incredibly difficult to do if you print it on the build plate. And honestly, I think just lifting it up, putting on supports, you can get square corners, square everything without having to worry about all that printing on the build plate. So personally, I'm against it. I know, like I said, I'm gonna piss some people off on that one, but whatever, that's my opinion and I'm sticking to it. So now that I lifted it off the build plate, let's rotate it a little bit. On this one, I just wanna make sure the way I'm rotating it exposes some of the options. So if I did it this way, this guy right here, I can't really see it from the bottom, this track piece right here. And that's a really important. That key is very, very tight right here, as you can see. It's like super, super tight. If that thing warps at all or bends at all, or I got some support damage, it's not gonna really click together all nice and beautifully. I wanna make sure that those things have an overhang that I can actually reach them. So let's make sure that when we tilt it on a way where it exposes that. I don't need a huge tilt. I'm not trying to make it where I have to put supports all over this nice, beautiful flat surface. I want it to be flat and clean and pretty. So I'm going to avoid going so much that I now have to support this side or anything weird like that. So I'm gonna do maybe about that much, and that should be fine. That's going to expose enough. I mean, if I wanted to, I could probably put it on another angle, expose a little more of this edge right here. That's gonna make it so that when this thing prints, I'm not trying to print the entire surface at one time. It's gonna slowly build up on these ledges right here. We can see this one as it takes a couple layers to kind of go through and build it. Let's see, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 32 layers to print that entire thing. That's quite a bit, and it's gonna be a little more self-supporting than if I did it perfectly flat and that whole thing gets printed in one layer, which would cause some issues. So anyway, let's go through and add some supports. I'm just gonna use my projection support on this one. I think it's gonna be really, really easy. So we're gonna go to Manual, Projection Support. I'm just gonna highlight the areas in which I want to apply projection supports to. That's probably good. Preview supports, make sure I've got some infill on, and just set these settings real quick. Heavy, 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 border, apply the support, see how it looks. Looks okay. And grab these ones right here. I'm gonna go turn on my structure and then recalculate. And there we go, not using as much supports anymore. I've got these little ones. I don't wanna use these little ones right here. I think I can get away without it. If I want to, I can go and place a little mini kind of back here in the corner. And I want to make sure I have some supports right here, but I'm not going to use heavy. I'm going to use like a light. I want this corner to not droop or have issues because it's going to interfere. But I also don't need a lot of support. Just a couple lights should be fine. Maybe even one right there, just to make sure that I've got nothing's going to overhang. A little bit of support damage is really easy to clean up. A surface that's kind of flattened out or warped, practically impossible to fix after the fact. So we want it done that way. And we're just gonna do the same thing up here on this top surface. I'm gonna go to my support brace, projection supports. Let's give it a look here real quick. I'm not liking what I'm seeing on the infill. Let's turn that down just a little bit. Turn off my Z influence. Yeah, I like that. So 4, I've got some more, the border. Let's maybe go from a medium heavy to like a medium. I don't want a Z influence. That's looking good. Maybe make that offset a little bit bigger. That's gonna push those away from the edges, that offset right here. Hit apply. I saw 2 that were a little close together. We're gonna go through and delete those right there, right in the center. Or wait, it's that one right there. Those 2 tips are too close. That tip gets deleted. And delete the little bracings right there. There's actually a real quick way to delete these mini ones. If you have like a ton of them, you can go over to support, selection, select mini supports and hit delete. I'm not gonna do that because I have some down here I do want. So, but just a little hint there for you. I'll delete those ones. And again, these ones are a little close to the edge right here. I don't like the way that it did it. So I'm just gonna delete these ones here on the inside that are at a higher angle. Delete that mini. All right, I think that's looking better. When you're doing parts where you need dimensional accuracy, you're gonna over support it. Almost always, it's just the way it is. Next thing I don't like that there's only 3 pillars doing all those. So I'm gonna come over here. I'm actually gonna change the structure from 5 to 4 millimeters. That's gonna make it so the support shafts are slightly closer together. There's a few more of them just to make sure this thing is going to print all right. The last thing I wanna make sure I don't miss this guy right here. That's important. And we're gonna go make sure I got my light. I'm just gonna place a couple supports that are normally way too close to each other for something like this. But for what I'm using here, it's gonna be great. Get that away from the edge. And there we go. All right, and let's go through, add some bracing. And we're pretty much done. This guy's ready to print. And this looks very similar to the one that I did print that made really great results, as you saw. They did require a tiny bit of sanding on each one, but when I say tiny bit of sanding, maybe 10 seconds maximum per part. So it really didn't take that much long of sanding to make sure everything fit beautifully. Now again, just to recap on this one, why I made the decisions I made. I didn't want to print it on the build plate because that's a big mess. I didn't want it perfectly vertical, even though that would have given me the best surfaces, nice and smooth, because I'm worried about the overhangs warping and kind of bending down, making it so that the keys right here between the tracks don't fit together really well. So I added a small angle and I angled it in such a way that it was easy to reach from the build plate moving up, all the major key components, so that way when I removed the supports, minimal sanding was required and perfect fits were achieved. Now there are a total of 11 of these that have the key and 11 that don't. The key ones are for these little fun orange tracks, which are just press fitted in, they're not glued. As you see, I just popped it off. So I don't want to redo all my supports. This is the one that doesn't. So what I can do is just right click, duplicate this one, go over and click on browse, and then select the one that is the one that has the hole in it, which is link, select that guy. That's gonna bring it in, and now you can see it just replaced the model with the one with the square in it. Because these things are pretty much identical minus that little keyhole is in there, I don't have to redo the supports entirely. If these things had different dimensions or different aspects to them, I would have to print them all individually. I'd have to support them all individually and then duplicate them. So at this point, the only thing left to do is to duplicate them so that there's 11 of each, combine them, share the rafts just like I did with the other ones, and then those are ready to go. Let's change it up a bit and do the gear right here. This one's a little bit different. For this one, because I didn't want to use a lot of resin, and this would be a lot of resin if I printed it solid, I'm gonna hollow it out. But I also need to be really structural, so I'm gonna do it a little bit differently. You'll see mine's got a bunch of little holes in it. I can kind of see through the holes. And same with this one, I also added holes into it. So let's show you how I did that. So first thing as always, we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. I want it to be really, really well printed. So I'm gonna do a small rotation. But because this is a really big surface area, it's flat, I don't want it to be really destroyed. So I'm gonna put a small tilt on it. You don't probably have to with a piece like this one because the edges right here don't need to be perfectly perfect. They're not exposed to anything. When it's on there, they're just kind of clean. So I could always print it like that and then just flat sand it on some sandpaper, making it a really clean, perfect edge. But let's pretend that maybe these gears went together and you needed a really good edge. And the spacing was important as well. Remember, dimensional accuracy. So for that one, because we want to maintain that, I'm gonna put a small tilt on it. Not a huge one, just one to make sure this flat surface right here isn't all warped and gross, which would happen if I printed it any other way. If I printed it directly flat on the build plate, I couldn't hollow it. I would have a big suction cup in the middle. It wouldn't be exactly dimensionally accurate on Z. It's just, there's a lot of issues with doing that. It would give me a really perfectly flat base on the bottom, but the trade-off to me, again, isn't worth it. So, all right, first thing we need to do is we need to hollow it. Now I'm gonna use 2D hollowing instead of 3D hollowing on this one. And the reason is I just want this thing to be like really structural. I mean, I'm probably going overboard, honestly. I probably could use 3D hollowing and just leave it completely empty, but I wanna do it differently. So I'm gonna do 2D hollowing. We're gonna turn that on. I want my walls to be pretty thin, just because we're gonna have this lattice structure inside. So all these little white dots here is a lattice structure. It's just gonna make it really structural all the way through. I still need a hollowing hole, however. So I'm gonna click on holes, place it, and then I need the hollowing hole to go all the way through. So I'm just gonna hit space, grab the blue, and go all the way to the top. And let's see, that's about where, I think on these ones I ended up putting them on every key, yeah. So let's delete that, and we're gonna put it on every single key right here, just so I had it on like a thicker spot. Also help me out with spacing. Thought the spacing just looked better to do it this way. It's not perfect, but you know. Uh-oh, and my keys aren't long enough. So let's hit spacebar, grab the blue, push it all the way out to the top. There we go. Now I can hit Control-C on my keyboard. I can click on these and hit Control-V, and we'll just paste that settings. Control-V, 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 and there you go. They all stick out. All right, so now that it's been hollowed, and the suction cups holes are there. The suction cup holes go all the way through, so it's gonna be easy to clean and easy to print. Now all I have to do is support it, and I'm gonna use projection support because it's awesome. So under manual, start projection support, highlight my area, previous supports. I think on this one it's set for the crazy border, which I could maintain honestly. If I change my support preset to medium to my edge dancer, which is my really special one, change my interval to, I think, 0.2. There we go, really, really close. And I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna make my infill offset nothing. I don't want any infill offset. And I want my infill to be a little bit more. There we go. I think that's gonna work really well. It's a lot of supports, but it's gonna make a structure that is gonna be really, really accurate because of how all of the entire edge has this really fine support structure on it. So it's gonna give me like a perfect edge. And then there's a couple bigger ones in there just because those edge ones aren't really strong, even though there's a ton of them. That extra little bit in there is just gonna make sure that it's gonna hold to the supports. Extra strength, not a very bad thing. Of course, this is like a big suction cup right here. So now what I do is I grab the whole thing. Well, I don't wanna grab the ones at the very, very center or the very, very front. So I'm gonna grab maybe up to about right there. And then I'm going to turn on my grid support. And then we're going to recalculate. It's going to make a cool little thing right here. I'm going to add my bracing. And we're good to go on that guy. It's gonna be kind of a very unique print, but pretty awesome. Now, you don't have to do this crazy like edge dancer border thing. When I actually printed these, I didn't use it and they came out beautifully. It's just up to you. But I will include the preset file in the description down below if you wanna try using that edge dancer thing yourself. For sake of time, I'm not gonna show you the spacing jig. Just know I did the exact same method I did for these, for that. But however, because I turned on 2D hollowing on the entire scene, I have to make sure that some of the thicker parts don't have 2D hollowing because I'm gonna show you something I'm pretty sure they do right now. Let's go to preview and we can see there's some little black spots in it. And that's because it's thick enough where the 2D hollowing was applied to this one. So make sure that what you do is under the objects library, there's this little enable disable 2D hollowing toggle. Make sure you turn that off on any object at all you don't want hollowing applied to. If you don't do this, you'll have like resin traps and issues with your print. So very important, don't skip that step. The crankshaft is a little bit unique. On this one, I've got some weird shapes. So let's rotate it first by 90 degrees because I want to minimize any overhang. If I print it like this one, I've got this big flat overhang. I don't like that. So I'm actually just gonna do a 45 on that one and print it like this. So after I've tilted like this one, you see I got some interesting shapes. I got two V's right here, a V here, and then a couple of angles at 45s, 3 angles at 45s. This is gonna be really easy to support and print so that it's like pretty much perfect. Where's mine? Works really well. Isn't that fun, cute little guy? There you go. All right, so on a V shape, when you have a V shape like this one, support on the left and the right of the V. That way you're gonna get a really good finished product. So on this one, I'm just going to place one support, hold down Shift, which is going to use the inline support. I've got it set to 1. Let's do a little closer since we're doing dimensional accuracy. Let's do 0.8, see what that does. There we go. Yeah, 4 per side, that's more what I'm looking for. Probably put these ones a little close to the border. Let's do those again. I don't want them to overhang. There we go, that's better. And then there'll be like a small island there on the corner, but honestly, it's so tiny, you'll never even notice it. If you need like perfect accuracy, there's another thing you could do with using really, really small support tips that are like 0.2 millimeter, and you just put them in a line. I'll show you what that looks like real quick. It gets a little crazy. I'm gonna use a different support tip. Well, I'll just come over here, place a support tip, make the diameter, let's say 0.1, and I'm gonna go from cone to cube. Let's place it really close to the edge. This is if you need like a perfect, which on this one, I didn't need it to be perfect, but sometimes you do. I'm gonna change this down as low as I can get at the interval, which is 0.5. Place it and then go again in between. And then do the same on the other side. Place it, do my 0.5, do it again in between. That way everything is 0.25 away from each other. So now I'm gonna have a much, much better connection with that point right there. Everything's really close to the edge, and it's gonna make a much better print. Now these aren't strong enough to hold this whole thing, so I still do need to come back in here with my like normal supports a little bit after the fact, and just kind of reinforce this structure, just so that as it goes up, there's enough printing there to make it work. And that's what I'll do from here. Let's see, and then we'll move to light, because I don't need a lot of supports. Make the interval back to, let's say, 2 millimeters. And just kind of go up on either side from here to the top. And then from here, that's a medium. I still want that to be a medium, just to kind of catch that. And then light after that, because I don't need a lot of support structure. Just kind of go up. I want to make sure I get the edges supported on either side. It may seem like a lot of supports, but again, I'm looking for dimensional accuracy. This part is not as important, but I still want to show you how you would do it. Now there's a lot of supports right here, so what I can do is I can grab like the taller ones, just like this. Go to structure, turn on structure. I'm gonna set this to 4 millimeters again. Right click and recalculate it. That's just gonna save me some resin, and it's gonna all print beautifully. Place my bracings, and that one's pretty much good. Oh yeah, add a raft. It's good to add a raft. On this one, because it's smaller, I'm gonna use the shape wall raft, just so that has a little bit more grab on the build plate, and it's easier to get the scraper underneath because of that, because this nice edge right here. And that pretty much, that's the key. Now the next one is gonna be the base. Now the base has these little parts right here that are keyed in there pretty tight. There's not a lot of tolerance on these squares. And also the side rails right here have these holes in them. Now these holes are really important because that's where the spindles go. And if those don't fit in there really, really well, if those aren't like really round, then it's gonna be an issue with this whole thing spinning. It's just not gonna work out really well. So we want these to be dimensionally accurate, and we want these holes to be round, not oval. So let's do that real quick. So starting with the base, if I printed it straight like this one, it's gonna be kind of warped and have an issue. The squares will print pretty well, but overall the bottom will just be kind of ugly. So what I wanna do is I want to put a rotation on it. If I just put a small rotation on it, either direction, something like that, I will essentially eliminate any parallel to the build plate issues, and my print time is still gonna be pretty low. If I didn't care about print time, or because I have some already tall prints on this, like these right here, and if I was doing it all on the same build plate, I could even go a little bit even more extreme with my angles and just a little bit better. I'm gonna use more resin because there's gonna be more bracings and supports, but overall it's gonna print a little bit better. So it's kind of up to you on how much you want to angle this thing. Just what you'd wanna do is you wanna avoid anything like, let me show you like this. We wanna avoid doing anything like this one because we still have to print the top part still has to be supported. Even if I rotated it, there's gonna be a ton of supports kind of angling all the way from the top to the bottom. It's gonna be a really long time. Plus these squares might squish a little bit. We really wanna look for like 20 to 45 degree angles everywhere we can. And since this is like a skeleton piece, it gets a little interesting. So I think just something like this one where we're kind of pushing one corner down is gonna be really good. This corner is a little heavier, a little bigger, so I might even put this one towards the bottom just because it's a little beefier structure. I can put more supports on it. That extra beefiness is gonna kind of help stabilize the entire print moving up. So this right here would be the way I would do it. To support it, it's gonna be really easy. I'm just gonna use, I could use projection supports again, or I could come here with like a heavy, just put one right here into the corner, and then just use the inline supports just to create a nice, a real good inline bracing. Oh, I actually had the mirror on and it actually worked. Hey. All right, so let's make sure mirror is off. There we go. So, and then on the taller ones, of course, I don't want to waste a lot of resin, so I can come here and just turn on my grid supports and then recalculate those ones. I really don't like using grid supports on the short ones, but on all the tall ones, I really like using it. Something like that one. Now, just follow the same steps. Come over here, place a support, go all the way to the top, hold shift, place another one. And I basically just kind of go around all the corners. Now I want a support structure on the inside and outside because this thing is so thin. I really want to make sure I'm doing it on kind of, you know, parade around the perimeter back down to geometry, high school, or whenever you took geometry. And I'm just going to parade around the perimeter. And that perimeter includes the internal and the external. So these little cubes right here, these little squares. I'm going to make sure, let's go to my visibility tips so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. And I'm just going to parade around the perimeter of everything. And that is going to give me a beautiful finished product with very, very few clicks. It's going to happen, oops. If you double click on your mouse, it zooms you all the way out. It's awesome. Grab that guy. One there, click. If I hold down shift, I don't even have to like, I can just click, 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 holding down shift. Makes it really quick. Let's grab, I think, yeah, I already have the projection supports on. So now I just go down to my bracing, hit update, and now I've got my bracing. So this guy is good to go the way it is. All right, moving on to the walls. So this is how this loads in, and I would be tempted just to give it like a tilt like this and hit print. This is the top right here. And so any supports I place on the top are going to be ugly, visible. Now, this is where it's a personal decision. You can do it like this, but just know that a lot of your supports are gonna have to stretch all the way from the build plate, all the way up here to support this top part right here. So if I do the same thing as I did with the other part, I'm gonna have a lot more supporting. But all the damage is gonna be on the bottom, so it's not gonna be visible. Or you can flip it around, do a full 180 on this guy, and you can do it something like this, where if I just put a small tilt on it like that, now I have, my supports are much, much shorter. Overall, the print time is gonna be about the same. The whole thing is about the same height. Of course, again, if I'm printing other things on the build plate that are taller, it doesn't matter. But I'm gonna use a little bit less resin on support, but I'm gonna cause damage on the top of the model. Regardless, I'm gonna print it like this because this is gonna put a small angle on this entire thing, which is gonna make it so that these circles right here print as circles and not as ovals. The more you tilt it, the better that's gonna get as far as these circles right here printing more and more circular shape, but the more supports you have to place on the overall the surface right here. So the more supports I'll have to place on these arms. If I tilt it a little bit up, I could get away without tilting the arms, without putting supports on the back of these arms at all, in which I didn't. When I did mine, I only placed supports kind of here on the bottom. I'll show you what that looked like. I just made sure that this angle was done really, really well. I just made sure I placed supports on each of the bottom of the little round parts right here. It's important that those don't flatten out. I did a couple of mediums, and then I went down from a medium to a light as I got further out. And just make sure this prints really, really well right here. I'm gonna place a couple supports right here on the top, maybe two more right here, just to make sure that that doesn't shift or move. I can always sand down any support damage, but I can't rebuild a model that's warped out of accuracy. So just doing that, it's gonna preserve it. If I want to really make sure that these circles right here maintain really, really well, what I can do is if I place a support kind of right here on each edge, it's gonna hold that edge really, really well. And I can do that on both of them. I'm using a light support. I could even probably use an ultralight, honestly. Let's do that. Let's make those ultralights. Those aren't there to hold any weight. They're really just there to make sure that there's enough material to get started on, just to make sure that those holes print really, really round. And you know, since supports they only support what's above them, not below them, I'm gonna place them below where I think I need them, not above where I think I need them. All right, here I've got an island on each of the bottom of these little balls right here. So let's go through, or caps, whatever. And I'm gonna put one little tiny support on the bottom of each one of those. They're really small islands. They're gonna get picked up pretty easy. I don't think they need much. I mean, if I was really worried about it, I'd probably come with like an ultralight, and I would do 3. I'd do 1 at the bottom and then 1 on each side. That way the support damage is gonna be really, really minor, but it's gonna keep that shape really well. This part doesn't need to be dimensionally accurate. It is just a decoration, but I still want it to look pretty. All right, we'll go through, add some bracing, though I don't think too many are tall enough to need it. Yeah, nothing, just a few. And we need 2 of these ones, so I'll just go through, right click, duplicate, and then make them share a raft. All right, and those are good to go. I think those will print just fine, just like that. That's pretty much exactly how I did these ones. Maybe a slightly less tilt, but not by much. And just to give you an idea of what it looks like when it's all done, here's the scene that I used to print this one. As you can see, it's almost identical to the one that I just showed you. Maybe slight differences here and there, but pretty much the same, and everything came out beautifully. And I think that about sums it up for this video. If you could, please like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who you think is getting into 3D printing, whether it be for models or some of this dimensionally accurate stuff, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. It really helps us out a lot to continue to grow the channel, reach a bigger audience, and hopefully increase the size of the resin 3D printing community so we all have more friends to share all of our awesome creations with. And as always, thank you for watching, and have a good day.